Good evening, everyone. This is the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for, what is the date? October 12th. And we will start by rising for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No.
Item is approval of the agenda, which is very short.
Any changes?
No, sir.
I move for approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is Mayor's report, and this is the schools are out, so there's not a lot to report because nobody is here, basically. But a lot of people are out of town taking a little bit of vacation. So Allison did that, didn't you?
I did.
Good.
Came back just for you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Next item is Citizens Forum. Do we have anybody?
No, sir.
None? Next item is approval of minutes from September 28th.
I abstained. I was not here.
I'll move to approve. Second. Thank you, Bob.
Let's see. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Where were we?
Ordinance.
Ordinance first reading, ordinance 17-15. First reading of an ordinance to replace the existing town of Farragut sinkhole ordinance with the new requirements.
Hi, I'm Bart Hose. I'm the Assistant Community Development Director. I'm here to present the proposed amendments to the town's sinkhole ordinance. The original ordinance was adopted in 2005. It's been very effective since then. But a recent variance request we had to the Board of Zoning Appeals regarding the ordinance, it identified a potential conflict that now exists between the sinkhole ordinance and some of the town's more recently adopted connectivity goals and requirements. The Board of Zoning Appeals actually denied the variance request and felt that it would be dealt with more appropriately through a legislative fix. So that's what we've been working on. We've been working both internally as staff and with the Planning Commission and the board on these issues. Some of the proposed amendments that we've put together are really intended to clarify the existing ordinance, to provide some flexibility when there are conflicts between the sinkhole ordinance and some of the town's other public plans and policies that might be in place, and then also to address some situations that have really cropped up from time to time where a sinkhole is discovered well after construction has started on a site and redesign is not practical. So we also were very concerned about looking to maintain the integrity of the existing ordinance, which, as I said, has been very effective. And one of the primary things in that ordinance is to basically avoid sinkholes as much as possible, or as the default position. So I think you all have a copy of the ordinance that's been highlighted with the major changes we made in your packet. Really, two of the most significant of those changes involve some of the criteria that we put in for the Board of Zoning Appeals to consider when they are hearing variance requests, and that was on page 3 of the proposed ordinance, and it's in section 107-65 under appeals. The existing ordinance named the Board of Zoning Appeals as the appellate body, but it didn't provide them a lot of guidance in terms of what sort of factors they should consider when they were hearing variance requests. So what we did is go in and borrow a lot of the language that was already in the zoning ordinance regarding variances to the zoning. So that's one major change we made. And then really the meat and the main focus of the changes that we were proposing for this are on page 5 of the highlighted ordinance. And that's the limited filling of sinkholes. And the current ordinance allowed filling of sinkholes really only under one condition, and that was where avoidance was clearly not possible for things like if Kingston Pike was being widened, a major arterial or something like that, and the road was already there, and there was no way to widen it without impacting a sinkhole. So what we've done is gone in and put in 2 other conditions, that the Planning Commission and the town can consider allowing a sinkhole to be filled under. The first is where a sinkhole is again sort of identified after construction has started. That has happened, and actually we're dealing with one right now where it really wasn't reasonable for the developer to identify it on the front end. It's discovered after the fact, and something really needs to be done with it, and it's not practical to redesign the entire site to avoid it. And then the second condition would be again, where there is a conflict between other town plans or policies that have been put into place, and we thought that it was reasonable to allow the Planning Commission to weigh the costs and benefits of allowing a sinkhole to be filled for maybe another, competing public policy goal or objective, and really this is really. I'm revolving quite a bit around the connectivity thing, and so the prime example of this is the variance request that did come before the board was for the Dollar General site that's being developed down Kingston Pike. The town now has requirements for connecting the pedestrian walkways and inner lot parking areas, and there was a sinkhole in the way. So it becomes a balancing act between that public goal and that public good and the protection of the sinkhole. So what we try to do is put some flexibility in there so that the Planning Commission can consider those type of things and weigh those factors. Of course, as soon as you open up, a condition to where you may allow filling of the sinkhole, then you also have to put parameters on it. So we built those parameters in, things like, any fill should be the limited to the minimum necessary to accomplish the task. We want the developer to, be required to submit design alternatives that could be evaluated to see if they can, reasonably avoid it or not. To put together a sinkhole management plan by a licensed geotechnical engineer or geologist, so that any adverse effects to filling the sinkhole are mitigated. And factors like that. So some of the other changes that we made were really related to those 2 larger changes. We changed a couple of definitions. One was at the suggestion of Dr. Peter Leminski with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, who we did submit this draft to for comment, which he was nice enough to read it over for us and provide us with some comments back. We put in a few other standards in terms of spelling out who needs to do evaluations on sinkholes when they are identified and that sort of thing. So if you all have any questions or any comments on this, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
I have a couple questions. First one, there's 2 attachments here. The second one is exactly the same as the first.
Yes, sir. The first one that's highlighted was just to show you where we've gone in and made changes, and the second one would be the actual ordinance that would.
Additional, nothing else in the second one other than what you've got.
No, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure of that. I had another question. Back on page 5, under 3, apparently you said there was only one instance where a sinkhole could be filled. So the rest of this has all been added to cover what you think will be any other situations that might occur.
Yeah. Yeah, the language on item A there, under the limited filling of sinkholes, that unhighlighted sentence was really taken from the existing ordinance, and everything else that's been highlighted was what we've put in. So there was some discussion during the Planning Commission meeting of having the capacity to send these requests on to the Stormwater Advisory Committee when they had drainage implications, so we added that language. And then we added case B and C. And then the items below that, A through E, were really sort of the criteria that, again, we wanted to put on the Planning Commission and the town staff when they work through a request to fill a sinkhole. So that.
Yeah, my main question is, this is all new language, it's not changing any?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of what is highlighted in yellow is new language. There were one or two things that we modified, but a lot of what's in yellow are things that we added.
I have no further questions.
I have one public speaker tonight. It's Robert Hill at 11504 Mountain View Road.
Good evening. I'm Robert Hill, 11504 Mountain View Road. I'm a member of the Stormwater Advisory Committee for this town. I was a member of the original Stormwater Advisory Committee when we worked many hours on this ordinance you got in front of you. This ordinance and its changes have not ever been reviewed by the current Stormwater Advisory Committee. It may have been reviewed by the director of that committee, but the committee members are not familiar with what's in there, and we haven't discussed the ramifications of the changes with regard to how we handle stormwater. And I'm here to ask that you postpone the reading of this at least a month until we can put this on the agenda for the next Stormwater Advisory Committee meeting, which will be a month from today, and discuss it at that time with anyone who wants to be there. It's not, from my standpoint, it's not ready for me to accept it, but if you vote for it, I don't have any voice in that. The purpose of the Stormwater Advisory Committee is to advise you, and so you ought to take this opportunity to let us look at it and see what our advice is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess to start discussion on this, we need to have a motion on the table. Do we have a motion on the table?
No, sir.
I think so. I move that we, what's the motion here? That for approval of ordinance 17-15 on the first reading to replace the existing town of Farragut sinkhole ordinance with new requirements.
I'll second.
Mr. Hill made a cogent point. We do have a Stormwater Advisory Committee, and this is definitely a stormwater-related issue. So I think that's a good observation. It would be good to have them an opportunity to review it and bring back their recommendations before we approve this.
I'd like to ask Mr. Palmer if he has any staff comments.
Mark, do you want to talk about the implications of delaying this?
I don't know that it's really up to you all. We could certainly take it to the Stormwater Advisory Committee. We did, of course, have Lori Saul look at it. She's the staff person that is over the Stormwater Advisory Committee, and we also sent the document to the state's head geologist that really specializes in sinkholes with TDEC. But certainly, I don't think we have an issue with taking it to the Stormwater Advisory Committee if that's what you all want. As you all know, we only have one meeting in November and December, but we don't have necessarily anything that's, urgent that we couldn't take it to them and get their thoughts on the revisions.
My thought is we go ahead and vote on it, and then for first reading, and let it go to Mr. Hill and the committee and let them look at it, and then we can look at it afterwards again as far as second reading.
And that would be the staff's recommendation as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
I agree.
I have
So-
no further questions.
So y'all will have the Stormwater Advisory Committee will have an opportunity to review it before second reading and make any recommendations at that time. Would that be agreeable to you, Mr. Hill?
Yeah, that'd be okay.
We're not going to pass it today. We're just voting on first reading, so.
The way I see it is, it's a town housekeeping ordinance, and it doesn't have a pressing schedule issue on it.
Right.
And we need to get it right, because stormwater, need to stand up when I talk. Sinkholes have one purpose in life. They're nature's way of handling stormwater. When you do anything to them or fill them up, it alters the stormwater flow underground, and you want to be very careful when you do that. And up to now, we've resisted that with vengeance, and that's the reason I'm here.
So do we have a
I have no further questions.
None here.
motion?
We have a motion and
Yeah,
second.
and we have a second,
And
so
this
we
is-
need to vote.
This extends it for 2 weeks?
No.
When will our second reading be?
The next meeting, because
26th,
2 weeks from today.
October 26th.
So,
We'll meet a month from today.
yeah, they meet at 3:30 in the afternoon on the,
well, I'll make a substitute motion then that we vote to approve this on first reading with the caveat that we not put it on the agenda for a second reading before Stormwater Advisory has had an opportunity to review it.
And we can ask them to call a special meeting if we get in a bind.
If something comes up. So that's a motion. Do we have a second for that substitute motion?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Do we
No more
dispense?
discussion.
Did we dispense with the first motion?
Well, the substitute motion takes its place, so we need to vote on this one.
All right. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
no, I mean, prior to them having the meeting. I'd like to see them get it prior to the meeting.
All right, so we're moving down to business items. The first is the approval of the Hot to Trot race, 5K, 10K, and Fun Run.
Yes, sir. This is similar to the previous years that they've requested, and it is for Thanksgiving morning, November 23rd. And in your attachments, it's shown there it'll feature 2 loops for the 10K and 1 loop for the 5K. It's along locations along Parkside Drive. There'll be a short-term lane and road closure on Parkside, and the setup will be between 6 a.m. and cleanup will be about 10 a.m. Staff recommends approval, provided the representatives from the affected subdivisions, the Cove at Turkey Creek, be notified of the event ahead of time. And staff would also recommend that the sponsors ensure that upon the event's conclusion, the entire course is free of any litter. So the motion is to approve the Hot to Trot road closures on Parkside Drive, November 23rd from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
I'll move for approval.
Again,
Speaker here?
I'm just here to answer any questions if you had any questions, but nothing has changed from year to year. We've not,
Okay.
we're trying to keep it at 3,000, even, we have to close actually the race, but we feel that the course really can't handle more than that, and so, so nothing's changed from the previous years.
Anybody have any questions?
No questions.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is an approval of a request for variance from the distance from intersections and distance between driveways requirements in the driveways and other access ways ordinance in association with requested right-of-way, right-in, right-out access onto Concord Road for the property referenced as parcel 37.03, tax map 153, 4.68 acres, zoned NC, Knox County, John and Sarah Malin, applicant.
Okay, as a background to this item, the entire Concord Road right-of-way is actually within the town of Farragut. But as you all know, some of the parcels on the east side, especially as you go south toward the roundabout, are outside of the town limits. So we really don't have any control over how those develop other than just granting curb cut approvals on this corridor. So as you probably know by now, in the next few months, TDOT is going to be initiating a pretty substantial improvement to Concord Road from the roundabout on North Shore to Turkey Creek Road. And as part of that project, the access points are under consideration. The applicant at this time is asking for a right-in, right-out access onto Concord Road so that they can coordinate that with TDOT ahead of time and incorporate that into the road design plans. The site plan that was in your pack and it's on the screen is very preliminary, and keep in mind that is actually in the county, how that would end up developing. But the access point is generally where they're requesting it. With that in mind, they're really just solely requesting the access approval with the understanding that this is just a concept. This plan has not even been presented to the Knox County MPC at this point. So Concord Road is classified on our major road plan as an arterial street, and on those streets there's a requirement for at least 400 feet between driveways and the distance from a proposed driveway to an intersection. The right-in, right-out that they're requesting at this time is roughly 380 feet from the existing access at Second Drive, which is to the south, and about 310 feet to the nearest access to the north. And that's an existing kind of informal curb cut in that location. So therefore, they're requesting a variance from that 400-foot distance in relation to their proposed access. The staff would note that this property can be accessed without new curb cuts onto Kingston Pike. You could access it from Second Drive, which they are showing to the south there, and potentially also to the north if there's a connection provided at some future point to that property as it develops. And that would thus nullify the need for the variance in this case. Something also that we pointed out when this was before the Planning Commission is, a goal, through a corridor, especially like this, where you're going to have pedestrian facilities on both sides of the street as part of this new project, is to try to minimize those conflict points, those points where vehicles and pedestrians intersect with each other. So that's something to think about, is providing for, another curb cut, and whether that intensifies that potential issue. And we also want to be careful that we don't, open this up to other requests for curb cuts onto this corridor, because it is an arterial street, and it is important to try to make sure that curb cuts are limited and well thought out for the future. The applicant's engineer did provide some justification that was included in your packet for their request, and we also provided in the packet some comments from the town engineer. One of the things that the town engineer recommended, and that we talked about with the Planning Commission, is that it just needed to be very clear that this is purely for a right-in, right-out. There is an existing raised median that's part of the Concord Road improvement plans that does come in front of this property. And if there's an access granted per their request, that it would in no way now or in the future involve any modifications to that median. So that median would have to remain a raised median. When this was presented to the Planning Commission for their recommendation to you in September, they did unanimously recommend approval of the requested variance for right-in, right-out only, curb cut roughly 380 feet from Second Drive and 310 feet from the nearest access to the north. Their variance approval recommendation was based on the arguments that were presented by the applicant's engineer at that time, and Gary Tucker's here tonight. He can mention some of those things about the pedestrian vehicular conflict concern that the staff had. And then the Planning Commission's recommendation was also conditioned on there never being a median cut in the median within Concord Road that is included in the approved cross-section as part of their upcoming improvement project. So with that, again, the applicant's engineer is here if you have specific questions on their request or their justification for this right-in, right-out.
Any questions? Do you have anything you want to add?
Mark was pretty thorough in everything he's saying there, and we don't have any problem with with it being a right-in, right-out, and no cuts to the median, leaving that like it is. We've gotten approval from TDOT, and we're ready to add it to the plan. We kind of think that, we're very close to being able to get that 400 feet because the property has, a little over 700 feet of frontage. So we're just a little bit shy of being able to meet that. And we really feel like it would be better to have another entrance instead of concentrating all the traffic at Second Drive. We've got a sinkhole up in that one area that might make it more difficult to access from Second Drive. And I think Mark mentioned the adjoining property here. We don't know that that's a possibility, to connect through that way. But that's other than that, we just request your approval.
Any discussion?
Yes. On the recommendation by Darrell Smith, our town engineer, was to have the acceleration lane. I do not see that on your drawing.
We, as Mark said, this is a very preliminary layout, and we felt like it would be better to wait until we get to the point that we've got a final plan. We know exactly what's going to be there, and we could do a traffic impact study and see if a deceleration lane or something is warranted based on the actual use at that time.
I think that if you're going to have TDOT involved, I think that this needs to be in there on the front end, not whenever you decide.
TDOT hasn't, they were ready to approve it, like we've drawn it here. They were ready, they weren't recommending a deceleration lane. And it's really not something that you see on a 4-lane highway. I really can't think of an instance where I have seen one, maybe occasionally where they got tractor and trailers or something. That nature, because the 4-lane highway kind of eliminates the need for a decel lane. Again, unless there was some, this plan changed and we had a huge traffic increase there, we would rather wait and see if that becomes. And to me, I think putting a decel lane would really be detrimental to the pedestrian traffic. In a way, it's going to make it a little more difficult for them and the bikes.
Mark, I'm going to ask a question. The note from Darrell Smith was to the Planning Commission. Did they discuss the deceleration?
Yeah, we did.
And what was the conclusion?
Well, I think they were okay with the applicant's engineer as far as, the point Darrell, I think, was trying to make is, and that Alderman Williams just mentioned, was, you could end up having to move a utility pole or some kind of large expense that could have been avoided if you'd have planned for it at this time. And as you all know, our policy's always been to have at least a taper, if not a full deceleration lane, because it provides for a better flow of traffic. People can get out of the flow of traffic and into a property so that you don't have people behind them don't, get stopped or, have rear end collisions and things like that. So it just provides a better flow of traffic. And if you drive along Kingston Pike, most of the new developments you see, and that's 4-lane road in many cases, have deceleration and or tapers. So that is something that the staff would recommend, because we think that this is a good time to incorporate that into the road improvement project.
I live in Sugarwood, and we have a DXL lane coming into our, if you're headed east, and that's really handy. You get out of the way of the traffic, and
I could
it
see
keeps
maybe a
traffic
small
moving.
one. I think the number that Darrell originally threw out was, I don't know, 100 feet long or 150 feet long, and we kind of thought that was a little bit, especially like I say, not knowing, it could be extended later if it was needed to. And part of the reason we moved the entrance, we had it a little closer towards Second Drive at one time, and we were looking at what Mark said, the utility poles, that if we had to put a decel lane in there, that it wouldn't impact because there's some light poles in there. I don't know that we would object greatly to a decel lane. It would depend on the dimensions of it, if it was extremely long or something. Because we're as Darrell or as Mark said, this is a preliminary plan, and it's possible that this could just get subdivided into 3 or 4 larger lots or something, and you wouldn't have the need for a decel lane.
Mark, do variances run with the property?
Well, they would run with how it was approved, yes, as far as this access would, and that's why they put dimensions on their recommendation when the Planning Commission considered this in September. Now, that could always be revisited. Somebody could, present an alternate request, but the way it was approved by the Planning Commission was very prescriptive, and, that's why we have the dimensions that was in the motion.
And I have one citizen that has signed up to comment on this as well, if you all are ready for that.
John Nels, 221 Smith Road. I was looking at this, and I think that this is awfully premature to be doing this. And Alderman Williams, I think, was bringing up some of the things there. But more importantly, there's not a specific site plan, so there's not a specific need. And what I'm most worried about is it would become, I think, legally impossible to defend anything greater than 310 feet. If you grant a blue sky variance here with no specific need, I think anyone could demand an equal variance. And I don't think that you would have any way to stop it. So I would ask that you vote no on this until there's a specific plan, and then they come back with a specific need.
It's my understanding that if we don't approve this now, it's going to be more costly later if it's needed.
Well, I think that's one of the applicant's points, was to try to coordinate this at this stage with TDOT, so that it's accommodated into their design. But it is very preliminary, and that was one of Darrell's comments as well, as you may recall from his notes. And we've talked about that this has not been presented to the Knox County MPC. I understand where the applicant's coming from, because they're trying to coordinate some kind of curb cut with TDOT. But, as Mr. Nils says, it is preliminary. So, it's...
Well, it is preliminary, but they have over 700 feet of road frontage with very limited access. And all we're really asking for is one entrance, one additional entrance point into the property. As far as the decel lane and the other stuff, yeah, that is preliminary. But I don't think it's preliminary to ask for an entrance to the property from Concord Road. I just don't believe that.
It sets precedence, correct?
Well, anytime you grant a variance, you have to be careful.
This property is zoned commercial, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm not familiar with Knox County, that NC, what is that? Do you know
I
what
think
that is?
it's just, is that neighborhood commercial?
Neighborhood
Yeah.
commercial. It's for small retail, like small little shops. or
Your store type thing or whatever.
mini store. Yeah.
Convenience store.
That I'm not sure of. I think that it has to be under 5,000 square feet each unit. And so we were looking at a low-traffic generator. That's what we were thinking of.
Yeah, it looks at the drawing here, it's shows a strip mall with 5,000 square foot.
I'm Sarah
Units.
Malin, one of the applicants. And what my husband and I were thinking of was just a small retail center with just like little shops and all for the community. And I also wanted to point out that the current speed limit of the road, Concord Road at that point, is 35 miles per hour. And with the raised medium strip, we won't have any cross traffic coming over. And so I just wanted to bring that up. If we go further, once the road is all finished with TDOT, which will be in 3 years, then we'll have better plans for what we want to do, and then we'll be coming back through the process to get input from everybody. And so you guys will have another chance to relook at the access and all as it is then. And I realize that traffic studies will be needed then, but we don't even know what the traffic flow is going to look like or anything when the road is finished. So that's just something else to keep in mind. But I just would like to have access to my property from Concord Road. We've got like 740 feet of frontage, and I think having one point where the traffic is going in and out would be safer than having it out on Second Drive, which is a really small road. So, and I've tried to work with the property owners to the north to see if maybe they would grant an easement so I could get over to come out at that one spot, and they were not at all agreeable. I offered money, I even offered some property, and that was not agreeable. That was a couple years ago. So,
Looks like you've got 124 parking spaces there. That's a pretty big development.
yeah, well, that was a conceptual plan. I came to Gary and said, this is my dream of doing something like this, and that's what we were able to come up with. So, but it is very preliminary. You know, the main thing I just want today is a variance so we can do the driveway. So when TDOT enlarges the road, we'll have a cut that we could use.
Mark, I've got a question. If we were not to approve this, if the road is built, 2 years from now they decide they're going to do something different, would it come back to us or would it go to the county at that point?
Any new access would come back to us,
Come back to
because we
us.
have control of the right-of-way there, so.
Good.
And that's something that could happen. I think TDOT still has a few, I mean, this project keeps getting backed up a little bit, so, it's probably going to be, I don't know if Gary's heard anything, but probably next year at the earliest before they even get.
So we could wait 6, 8 months, a year before we make a decision on this, or does TDOT need a decision from us now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the,
They were about to let the contract, is what we were understanding back in August, so we're getting very close to.
it's really up to you all and your comfort level as far as, this. They could always come back and ask for something if they have a plan approved, or, they could always revisit that. I think, in what the applicant is trying to do is to plan for that on the front end with TDOT, which there is some logic to that. But again, it is a plan that hasn't been approved, so.
And we don't control the zoning.
And we don't control the zoning. The only thing we control in this corridor is just the curb cuts. So even a traffic impact study, really, I mean, we might have some involvement since we do have control of the curb cuts, but we may have some limited involvement in that as well.
My point about the variance running with the property, regardless of the use, regardless of the zoning, regardless of the sale or transfer of the property, that variance is still going to be there once it's approved.
Yeah, that's where the curb cut will be, unless there's been a change to the action. Yeah.
It's all,
You into that, you're stuck with it then.
That's fine.
Both of us.
I would just appreciate a cut on the property.
this sounds like a lot that we don't know yet. And I don't know how to proceed in this situation. Because no work has started yet, right? Do we have final plans from the
No.
state or anything?
Well,
We have done this layout is based on the plan by TDOT, and we had actually sent them the previous plan, and they were ready to make a plan change at the last, right before letting the contract, and we're going to add it to the contract. And we were to that point, we had all the approvals.
Knox County approved it, didn't it,
Yeah,
Gary?
And we just, the last thing was, we needed to get the town of Farragut's approval before TDOT could proceed. They didn't have any problem at all with it.
Is there any idea of when this whole project might start?
It's just any time now, from what I've understood. But that's been since August. It's been every month. Of course, you know how it is with TDOT. But I don't think it's going to be too long. It's pretty imminent that they are going to get started. I think it's just a matter of getting the contract.
Okay.
Well, we can't speak for TDOT tonight, so if we need to get a firm answer from TDOT of what their plan is, then we can do that.
Say that again, Gary, I'm sorry.
We can't speak for TDOT tonight. I don't know. I don't think Mark knows. This project's been planned for a long time. But we can get that information and bring it back to you all if you need that to make this decision.
Just sounds like a lot of ifs right now to me.
Well, it does seem to me unusual that you would deny somebody access from the major artery in front of their commercial property and force them onto a second street. That just seems illogical to me. I mean, it seems like it should be a very unusual thing if there's no compelling reason not to allow them access to the main thoroughfare in front of a piece of commercial property.
It seems like we've had 400 feet for quite some time. This is not something that's new as far as driveway connections between.
Well, I know we've had that rule for some time, but it just seems to me unusual that this piece of commercial property can't be accessed from the street in front of it. I mean, there's not a street there's not an existing street, and there's not a formal curb cut to the north of them. So they could easily get to 400 feet. They're trying to accommodate moving in. I don't think we could deny them if they would want to move it. I don't think there'd be any basis of denying it if they were to move it north another, 20 feet?
Well,
Do I understand that right?
It would be within 400 feet of the curb cut to the north in that case. They're within 400 feet on either side, so they don't.
Yeah,
they
but there's
can't
nothing.
really
There's
move
nothing
it.
there.
Right.
I mean,
well, there is
that
a curb cut out in the field. Actually, there's a. I mean,
But
it's
is
not.
TDOT going to build a curb cut there?
I'm assuming they are. I mean, it does line up with the Clarity or the First Utility District access, so that probably
Driveway.
is where a permanent. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm guessing that's probably where there would be another access.
And that's 300-something feet, correct?
310, I think.
Yeah, it's
10.
roughly 310, I think, as we scaled it out from the north edge of their proposed driveway.
I just feel uncomfortable, and it's not that I want to deny them, their plan's preliminary, we still have some time to go with TDOT. I I just feel uncomfortable making a decision today myself based on what we're looking at here in front of us. This preliminary plan of theirs.
Well, the board could postpone it, and we could bring it back at the next meeting with that information.
To me, not granting it is creating a hardship on the property and actually kind of devaluing the property to some extent. Is that like Mr. Markey was saying, it's kind of unusual not to have access to the road with that much frontage and that much acreage.
Yeah, you ride by a store and you can't figure out how to get to it. That's,
And I don't believe you have to have a specific plan to grant that access.
Yeah. I just want to cut so I can get to my property from Concord Road. This property, I've been in my family all my life. And when I do a development, it'll be a very nice development.
well, we have a, we have a requested motion before us. I make a motion that we approve the requested variance in accordance with the Planning Commission's recommendations.
Well, I'll second.
Do we have any other discussion?
Let me ask you, can we possibly amend that to delay it until the next meeting, the vote till the next meeting? To get more information?
You can make a substitute motion.
I'd like to just get a little bit more information myself. Gary,
What information would you like, sir?
I guess your preliminary drawing here, I guess, yeah, when I think about it, it's you got to have access. I understand that. And we know for sure that TDOT's going to put a curb cut across from the utility entrance.
I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure, no.
Could we find that out? Because if not, we could move this 400 feet from the second.
How many, what size is the tract to the north of you? Do you know how many acres approximately, and what size that piece of property is?
I don't know right offhand what's that.
To the north, is that towards Kingston Pike?
Toward Kingston Pike, yes.
It's 8.5 acres.
They've got 8.5 acres there, so they probably have,
How much frontage?
Now, that I don't know. It's a lot of frontage.
they have, it looks like if they're the same depth, looking at the property line running behind you there, they would probably have at least half again, if not more, frontage than you have.
Yeah, it used to be all the same track until my sister sold the other track. So it's owned by 2 doctors, and it's currently for sale.
Well, we have a motion and a second.
I'm like Ron, I think we need a little bit more information, because when we start throwing out our 400 feet, then that's, why have it? Why have it in the, as an ordinance when you give a variance on it? Now, if we find out from TDOT that the other owner is not, I mean, if they're going to go ahead and go straight curb and gutter all the way across, and this will be the only curb cut that they put in, then it's a whole different story, I think. Gary
Yeah,
can find
because
that out.
the adjacent property could put their curb cut any place 400 feet from.
From his existing, if they go 400 feet with theirs, then the next property owner will have to go 400 feet.
Right.
I think that's where we need to be at, in my opinion.
And I think also, this is not a case where they've got 800 feet of frontage and they arbitrarily want to put it 350 feet. They're in kind of a hardship situation here because of the size of the tract. And and I think, we're possibly within our right to deny it, but I don't see where anybody would be benefited, particularly since it's just a right in, right out. It's not a.
If they go 400 feet, then it'll be up to the onus will be on the next property owner to go 400 feet from that one. They're 380, 20 more feet is 400 feet.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Well, I wouldn't base your decision off of this plan either, because again, we don't control the zoning on that property. This use could change tomorrow. The zoning could change tomorrow. The intensity of that use could change at any time after we approve this, so I would caution you not to look at the plan and make your decision based off of that.
I simply would like to postpone it a little longer just to get a little more information, more discussion on our part before I make a decision. So do I need to make an
Alternate motion?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to move that we postpone the voting on this ordinance until we get further information. I don't know if we need to put a time frame on that or not.
Maybe just some clear guidance on the information you need, because I want to make sure that when it does come back to you.
Main thing is about the curb cut across from you two.
PDOT's curb cuts
Yes.
are along
That's the main thing. I
the
think
corridor.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else that y'all can think of?
Well, I think we need to list the implications of the different uses that could possibly go there, and this is a gateway to our town.
Yeah.
A good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the curb cut, once it's there, I mean, it's like Gary says, it's, unless it's changed through another action, it pretty much goes with the property. So you can't base it on the plan that's in front of you. It could be much more intense than that. The question is whether that location for that curb cut is appropriate for now and in the future for any use that might access it.
I want to help these people out, but I just have too much doubt right now. So is that motion okay?
So let me ask Gary a question. So you're concerned about future different application. What do you anticipate as a negative? What's the worst that could happen?
They could.
How bad could it be?
They could rezone it to some sort of industrial use where the intensity is up and we've got truck traffic going in there. Again, this is a project that we've been planning for a long time. It's a gateway to the town. We want to make it look beautiful. To me, there's just too many question marks on that property because we have no control over it. We control the right-of-way and we control the access. Beyond that, it's out of our hands. So once this variance is granted, it will run with the property regardless of who owns it, regardless of what use is on there. It's there, and it's never going to go away.
So what's the downside for being truck traffic there? It's still got to get on and off Concord Road. So help me out. Help me understand what your concern is.
I don't want to say there's a downside to it, but I want you to have the right information and understand that you're looking at a plan right here that could change at any time, and we would not be able to control that change. So this decision we're making now is going to impact that entire area. And the decisions they make on that property is going to impact that entire area. And to me, there's too much that we don't control. And obviously, there's a lot of questions we still have. So I'm not saying one way or the other. I want you to understand that this plan you're looking at, I would not consider this plan in your decision.
It appears Mr. Hill would like to address the
Oh, okay.
board.
Well, I just wanted to make an observation here that I spent a lot of time in 1990, 1998, and 160 hours, working on a thing called the Growth Policy Plan. The Growth Policy Plan has a clause in it that when you have contiguous properties between the county and the city, or the county and the town, that they have to work together to get a solution for the access to that property. So I suggest you go to that plan and read it and see what you have to do and then do what that says.
That makes sense. Do you, Mark, are you aware of that?
I'd have to look into that. I'm not sure specifically what that would entail.
I like that ought to be part of our homework.
We can look into it.
Thanks, Mr. Hill.
So if there is a formal written plan for addressing this type of situation, then I think,
Yeah, I don't.
I know part of the hangup is that the density could increase, but to me, if something different goes in here, it could, if anything, it's going to make this entrance more necessary. Just, because you don't want all the traffic bottling up at Second Drive. There's not even a left-hand turn lane at Second Drive coming on the TDOT plans. There's no signalization there. So you're going to have traffic backing up at Second Drive, and which would be bad. So that's just another comment I'd like to make.
Thank you.
We had a
I made a
motion.
I made
Did we
the
have a
motion.
second?
Do not have a second.
an alternate was discussed. Was it put forward? Did
Yes.
you put your alternate forward?
I put it forward.
Can somebody read the motion back?
Well, I just have let's see, alternate motion to postpone until additional information, and you all had talked about the timing of that. So that's the part that hasn't been added.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to firm up that motion. If you're going to make a motion, it needs to be specific.
How much time do we need, Mark?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
30
it's
days,
some-
60 days?
I really couldn't answer that. I guess, we'll get the information as quick as we can. I mean, it's TDOT, has some of the information. I'm not sure if that's all finalized completely. I'm assuming it is, but
I'd like to just put as soon as possible then.
yeah, I think you might want to leave it kind of open-ended, just so we can make sure we get the information you need.
And the other bit of information I would like included is that entrance should include a deceleration lane that our town engineer suggested. I want to make sure we're clear on that too.
Okay.
So the motion, again, would you read what you've got there?
The alternate motion is to postpone until additional information is provided and brought back to this board as soon as
As soon as
ASAP.
possible.
I hate to put ASAP, but
If you want to follow Robert's rules, you can either postpone to a specific date or just postpone, and then
Postpone
it's
until we
open.
can get the information.
You just say, you just postpone it.
Postpone it.
Okay. Thank you.
So the motion is,
We got a motion, we need a second.
there a second?
No second.
I'll second. Any more discussion?
So we're back to the original motion?
oh, I thought McGill had seconded that.
He did.
So you're voting, yeah.
We're voting on
The
Alderman
amended-
Markley's motion.
So the original motion was to approve, that was seconded by the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the substitute motion died for lack of a second. So we're
Correct.
back to the first.
Oh, I thought McGill did this. I thought he had seconded the substitute motion.
He did not.
I did.
I thought he
My
did
motion?
too.
Whoa, what?
I thought Ralph had
Can we have a count,
seconded.
please?
No, wait a minute.
That's what we don't know. My question is,
Second my,
I thought I did.
okay, well then we
So
did.
you seconded the
Two.
motion to postpone? Mayor McGill? So you seconded the motion to postpone, is that correct? Okay.
Okay,
Then
we
great.
had.
Vote on that then.
Is everybody ready?
I think I am.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed.
So we'll get back to it, I think, when it comes back up.
That takes us down to town administrator's report. Is that you?
I don't have anything to pass along from David, but I do have a quick statement I'd like to make about me personally, if that's okay. So,
Oh, wait a minute. David didn't send anything at all?
nothing.
Okay.
Vacation.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's out of town.
Okay.
He didn't give anything to me. I don't know if he's passed along anything to anybody else.
No, go ahead.
So it's with mixed emotions, and as you already know, I've been offered and accepted the position of city administrator with the city of Roswell, Georgia. I wasn't necessarily looking for a new job or searching for a new path, but this opportunity presented itself and checked all the boxes, so to speak, for me and my wife, Emily. And if you're not familiar with the area, it's about 20 miles north of Atlanta, along the Chattahoochee River, and very similar to Farragut in character and its deep connection to its history. The only difference really is it's a lot bigger. I'll start there November 1st, so there's going to be a quick turnaround, a quick transition for me from here to there. I just want to say I hope I've had a lasting impact on the town for the better. And I do know that it'll be a minor hiccup with me leaving, but since we have a ton of talent in this organization, I have no doubt the team will keep moving forward under David and the board's leadership. I look forward to watching this progress from Roswell and taking everything that I've learned here along the way down there to my new team in Roswell. So I just want to say I appreciate all your support over the years, and it saddens me to leave, but it's time.
Well, I hate to see you go, but I'm sure you'll be back to visit.
Oh, I will. I'll be back and forth for quite a while. So it's only a 3-hour drive, so that move is going to take me a little bit.
I want to pass on my congratulations and let you know that you're going to be missed. So thank you for your service here.
Thank you a lot.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. I'm really surprised that someone hadn't snapped you up before now, so I knew it was just a matter of time. So
I
good luck
appreciate
to you.
that. Thank you. That means a lot to me.
Coming on.
It's been surreal. I haven't really had a chance to get excited about it, but I think after this weekend I'll decompress a little bit, and maybe we'll have to do that party.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I understand we got about 2 weeks to do that, right?
It's going to be quick.
You got to get on with it.
That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have none.
And we don't have a town attorney's report, so we are, we are done.
You're adjourned.